This first pair I'm working on is a pair that we use quite a bit. It was made in China. It has no other markings on it, so I'm not sure who the brand is, but it looks an awful lot like the Felco shears that we use, which would be number 2. That comes up. Here I've disassembled it and checking out the condition of the cutting edge. I have a piece of scrap sheetrock here, and the reason I'm using this is when I spray the WD-40 on it, the sheetrock will absorb the fluid, the extra fluid, and it won't go into the bench or, the surrounding areas. And you'll see it kind of dissipates real quick here as it soaks in. I've got steel wool and I'm kind of cleaning it up, and then I'll hit it with some sandpaper, wipe it off, and then examine the edge, and then I can sharpen it. I have a stone and a little diamond pad there. You don't have to be able to shave with it. It just has to have a sharp, clean edge. And we do this maybe every other year. It seems to satisfy our needs. Having so many pair, they don't all get, full usage, so it lasts quite a while. Here I finished cleaning them up. I'm wiping them down and show you the edge here. There's a nick right at the very beginning of that blade. So I've got some oil on the stone here, and I'll try to get that nick out of there. And then, give it somewhat of a sharp edge. You don't have to be able to shave with it, but it does need to be sharp. It's a pair of bypass pruners, so you kind of get by with somewhat of a dull blade, but this set is maybe 5 years, 6 years old, and it gets a lot of use. It's easy to use. It's got a good spring on it. That and the next one I'm going to be doing is the Felco. Those are really good. And then we kind of drop off in degree of usefulness, and you'll see what I mean. That little diamond stone, it works well, but geez, they could have made it a little bigger, but I guess that's what you get nowadays. So the case it came in is supposed to swing open, and the first day I bought it, it broke. So. Now here I'm putting it back together. It's not too difficult, there's only a few parts, so you can somewhat figure it out after a while. It's either going to work or it isn't, so. This one disassembles and reassembles pretty easy. I have one that's difficult, but this one seems to work pretty well. And it's just basic hand tools you need. As you can see, screwdrivers, pliers. My apologies for having the camera aimed wrong. I finally figured it out after doing this first pair of shears, and you'll see that I move it. But I thought I had it aimed correctly, but the thing is so small, it's very difficult to, check it out yourself. Look in the viewfinder and then come back over, and after you do the video, you realize that, you weren't even in the shot. So in any case, as you can see most of it here, I've edited out the bad parts. Just going to go together here and then check it out, make sure it's, you know, doing right. Do a quick test on it. This one's working good. So if you can't cut the cardboard, you might as well, you're all done with it. Now this is the Felco. This is my favorite. It's Swiss made, and that's probably why. It's a Felco number 6. They don't give these things away, but they certainly last. So it's well worth your money to buy 1 pair instead of 5, you know. So if I have to buy another pair, I'll buy another pair of these, definitely. Now this pair of shears spent, I think, a weekend outside in the rain without us realizing, and it was pretty nasty. We wiped it off, and I probably sprayed WD-40 on it at the time, but it's pretty bad. So it's time we kind of go through this one. Here's another shot of, watch this overspray on the WD-40 and watch how quickly it soaks into that sheetrock. An old timer told me this trick, you know, so I keep some pieces hanging around, that, you know, from projects instead of throwing them out right away. It works well, you know, if you're oiling or you're spraying something like this. See how quickly it sucked it all up there. It's just nice, and in the end, I don't have it all over the bench, and you know. This one's taking a little bit more elbow grease to get it clean, but it is coming off. I think I probably had a lot of sap on there. I had cut some, last year I had cut some pine trees and trimmed some stuff around Christmas and everything, so the sap probably protected it more than I realized, but all of that's coming off now. Now this cutting blade is pretty rough, so I've been working on it, and you can see the nick there. I don't know what the heck was they tried to cut with it, but looks like there was a nail in something or a piece of wire or stone or something. In any case, I'm trying my best to get it out. In the end, I get most of it, but you know, I don't like having that. Okay, I'm happy with the outcome here. It's not perfect, but it's good enough, you know, to work well in the yard. So, now we'll get this thing back together. I've changed the position of the camera here, so you'll probably see more video. It might be more interesting. And again, you know, you're sitting there with nothing to do watching me sharpen tools, so it's the way the world is today. Okay, now for the test, we'll see if it'll cut cardboard. And yes, it does. Okay, here we go with the Craftsman shears. I don't remember where I got these and when I got them. They are the most pathetic hand tool I think I've ever owned. I swear I don't think I can cut a stick of butter with these things. And I hang on to them only because I hope that someday I'll find a use for the metal portion of the blades. I suppose I could have returned them at some point. I just never did. I just can't see even going through that effort to be worth it. I'm kind of not surprised Sears went out of business because these things are just ridiculous. So I think by keeping them and eventually throwing them away that they'll stay out of circulation. They won't get sold to someone else. I believe that we really need to make things in this country that work well. And if I only buy one pair of shears in my lifetime, that's fine, as long as it works. This is just ridiculous. So I'm going through the effort here, but it's kind of a waste of time. I don't remember the last time I used them. I uncovered them when I cleaned out the shed, and here they are. So we'll take a look at it. They sharpened up decent, but when I got it back together again, they just can't fit together because the handles are plastic. They don't hold the tang of the blade at the straight angle it needs to be. I don't think you can do a plastic formed handle and then expect it to be precision. And when you do a bypass pruner, it has to be precise. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You know, the stick you're cutting will end up in between the two blades, and it just kind of scores it and then bends it even more. And it doesn't work. And apparently the folks that designed this don't know that yet, but maybe they do now that they're unemployed. But it goes back together pretty easy here. Just simple tools. So on the surface, it looks like, oh, this will work, but it doesn't really. I'm also not nuts about there's no locking mechanism on it. It doesn't appear that there ever was one, but so it's constantly open, which isn't good. And here you can see it's a difficult time cutting cardboard. So, and it's because the blades aren't lined up. I'm trying to tighten it even more, but I eventually got it so tight that it was hard for me to even squeeze them. It still won't cut. They're useless. So this little pair was made in China. There is no other branding on it. And this is a different type of shear. This is an anvil type, where the blade comes down on a brass piece that's slid into the handle. It's a simple design, and it works reasonably well. It works better than a Craftsman. Of course, it's a different kind of shear. We use this one quite a bit. I found after I opened it, there was dirt in there and inside the handle. I had to dig out. Here I'm removing that little piece of brass, checking that out. I kind of wish they'd given me a replacement piece. That would have been nice, but I suppose they didn't think I'd keep it that long. silly them. So it cleans up well. I like that the handles are small on it. It's really easy to use. And you only have one cutting, one cutting surface here. So the cleanup goes fast, and I'll put that piece back in there. Here's where I discovered the dirt inside the handle. They just took a piece of metal and they kind of folded it in half, and then the brass piece just slides in that opening and screws in. Just simple design. There's no bells and whistles on this. Here I'm figuring out that I put the wrong screw into the, two screws, and I put the wrong one into the anvil portion. We got that under control. Then you just have to line up the holes. Screw that hinge piece in. And that goes in a specific way, which I'm discovering. There's a nut on the end. And that doesn't cut that great through the cardboard, but when you cut a stick, on that anvil, that works. Now this is an unbranded pair. I almost thought that it was maybe a Craftsman, but they always have a stamp on it, and this has no stamp whatsoever. And this piece seems to be more intricate. I probably picked it up at a department store or something, and it works pretty well. There is a lock on the handle. It's difficult to take apart and difficult to put back together, but here again they've got the plastic handles, and the blades don't line up well, but there's not much I can do about it. This pair wasn't that dull, but then again, it's not used that often. So I was trying to put a good edge on it, and that maybe I can get some better use out of it, but it's somewhat successful. But what I should have done is brought some sticks in, some green, particularly green sticks, to try them out, but I didn't think of that ahead of time. So we're going to get this thing back together, and this was a challenge remembering which way it went, but I see some of these people online that take things apart and put them together, these intricate machines and stuff, and you wonder, what's their trick for remembering all this stuff? But I eventually got this, but this one was somewhat of a puzzle, where each little piece went. And first time I had it in backwards, I had to remove it. That didn't seem to work, and so, and that spring was a pain getting in there and keeping it there. But in time, you do these, after a while, you'll learn. Well, here I finally figured out the right way to go. When they make these things, they make them so they only go one way. It's not like well, you can do it this way or that way. So that's kind of helpful, because you get to a point where you can't go any further, and you've done it wrong. But here I forgot to put the spring in. No, that's in. As I said earlier, this has a locking mechanism on it, so it's kind of nice when you're finished working with it and you close it, you lock it, and you can put it in your pocket. It doesn't open up on there. So, all right, that's done. Now we're on to the loppers. I got this pair about 30 years ago, and to be real honest with you, I don't know where it came from. I lived in another house, and I was working in the woods out back, and I came across this pair of loppers, and I had never bought them. And there was a contractor working at the house at the time, and I asked him if I figured they were his, and he said no, he had never seen them before. So I have now a pair of loppers that seem to work pretty well. I have taken them apart so many times to sharpen them that the nut on one side is just about rounded over, so I have to hold it with pliers. Now what I should be doing is replacing that nut, which I will. I'm sure I have one kicking around. So, but today I'm just working with the one I have. So this is a bypass set also, and they work really well. So clean them up with a little WD-40. That cuts any pitch. We have pine trees, so I'm sure there's pine on there. Little steel wool. I've been using some sandpaper on a few of them to clean them up. And this is easy to do, because this just has the one nut and bolt. So it's not difficult to get it apart and put it together again. So I recommend, if you've got a pair, this is a neat little job to do. It makes it so much easier in the season when you're cutting. I put a little edge on it. I would say I use this probably more than the pruners, because it can cut bigger pieces. So then use the cheap diamond thing. We're doing that here. Okay. One goes back to the other. Yeah, well, like I said, I've rounded over that nut quite a bit, so, but it's a good locking nut, so I keep using it, but I should have a couple of wrenches there. Okay, these are done. They seem to be tight enough. I'll throw a little WD-40 on them, and that keeps any moisture out for a while. All of these, with the exception of the one that spent the weekend outside, all of these get brought in every day, so they're not out in the weather, which is why they've been able to last for so long. We try to do that with all of our equipment. It just makes sense. So we'll just kind of lay these out here and recap what we've found. This first one is the Made in China, works well. Next one is the Felpro number 6 from Switzerland, works really well. Next is the small Made in China. That's a anvil pruner, works really well. This is the no name with the lock on it. Works okay. And this Craftsman does not belong on the bench. I don't know what I'll do with it. The Lopper, 30 years old, works well. So this is Baystate Yankee. Just signing off. Hope everyone's well. Be safe. And if you're on YouTube, click subscribe. You can see the rest of my movies. Hit the bell and you'll know when I put something new out. And thanks for watching.